73rd round of VVV Gaming's Losers Bracket podcast, and this week we are full to the brim with news, information, and a great interview coming up for you. Please stay tuned. But first, let's start off with the way we normally start, some MLG news. MLG Raleigh, not the next event, but man, there's already a huge tournament planned for it that we actually have not seen before. Well, we saw a small preview of it at MLG Columbus, but we are actually going to have a full-fledged event for it at Raleigh later this year. I am talking about Mortal Kombat 9. There is an online qualifier already underway. Registration is free for this. Play closes July 26th, and there's over $2,000 in prizes already available on Game Battles. Please check that out. But this tournament in Raleigh is going to be huge. It's a walk-up competition, which means anybody can enter. The 8 players with the longest winning streaks over the course of Friday and Saturday will return for a championship bracket on Sunday to play alongside the top 8 qualifiers from the online event. Over $7,000 in prizes will be available at this tournament live. This is huge, bringing the fighting game community back into MLG. Jerry, are you as excited as I am about this?
I was excited because Slasher, I know, is behind this. For those of you who don't know, Slasher from Live on 3, who works for Major League Gaming and basically is their social media wizard. Through all of this, he gave me a follow on Twitter. And when that happens, the world is a better place. So I'm grateful for the follow, and I'm even more happy for Mortal Kombat 9 being at Raleigh.
Yeah, I am absolutely stoked about this. In addition to this news, something that's a little bit less exciting. If you were looking forward to purchasing your competitor passes for MLG Anaheim, you're going to have to wait just a tad bit longer. The sale for these competitor passes was pushed back and now will be released on Thursday the 30th for general sale. So just a tad bit longer, just about to go on sale, as opposed to what we had mentioned on last week's podcast. Thursday the 30th, these tickets will be on sale.
Yes, Jerry was talking about that last week. Folks, you do not want to wait for this. They will sell out. Look at the Columbus turnout. And so congratulations, people. You're getting 2 more days to get your finances in order, your credit cards ready, and everything you need to get your house in order for this event.
And for those of you that are fans of StarCraft, expect big news in Anaheim. Remember, we're in the backyard of Blizzard, so you don't know what other things are going to be announced in the next month. So if I were you, and I am a StarCraft fan, if you can get to Anaheim, California for this event, I would definitely go.
Now, speaking of StarCraft, the map pool for Anaheim has been released, and there's only one slight change. MLG Typhon Peaks has been removed from the pool, and now a new map, MLG Dual Sight, has been added. Dual Sight is identical to the version that was used in the GSL. So definitely you want to become familiar with that if you are a StarCraft player and looking to compete in Anaheim.
Yeah, and speaking of changes, or, well, things that are changing, but also things that are a bit odd, let's move to Halo for a second. Halo, version 5 settings released, but there was a problem, wasn't there, Jason, with the number of people involved or something?
Problem is a bit of an understatement. I am overwhelmed by this. A couple of episodes back, we had talked about how MLG was looking for community feedback for the Halo Reach settings. Well, Sundance has released information that only 5 people, 5, count them 5, have replied to the game testing. 5 people have given their feedback. I am absolutely blown away. To quote Sundance verbatim, he said, "Here I am today with a call to action. If the community does not actively participate in the Halo Reach game testing process moving forward, we will be transitioning to a system that does not incorporate community feedback in any way. You came together as a community and clamored for a system that gave you a voice. Now it is time to use it. If you're not satisfied with the game types we released today, please use those feelings to fuel your participation in the process moving forward. We truly do value your feedback as a community, and I sincerely hope that those of you who rallied for this change will follow through and do your part by providing your feedback on a regular basis."
Jason, I've got to tell you that this is an absolute travesty that Major League Gaming, with as many fans, as many people participate on these forums, only 5, a number I can count on my hand, participated in the community feedback. People clamor to lend their voice to the changes in Major League Gaming, Sundance gives them an opportunity and says, here it is, have at it, only 5 show up. Just completely embarrassing.
Well, I can respect the fact that, maybe there's some cynicism in the Halo community toward what Major League Gaming wants to do with the settings. Again, I'm going to be honest, as a fan of Gears of War, maybe this is something that Gears of War players can be optimistic about, that maybe Halo has got a little bit of a fizzle. Maybe Anaheim is a little bit of a fizzle. I don't know for sure if that's the case or what reasons there are for the Halo community not being involved, but it does raise some questions. And like all games, it's going to be up to the community to make things happen. And to those of you who are fans of Gears of War and you want to definitely do better than this, here's an example of what not to do when Major League Gaming asks for input. Do not be ambivalent or disengaged. They need engagement and feedback. Very important to gauge the level of involvement and concern by the community. So I think it is a little bit of an embarrassment. Although, to be honest, I don't know the details as to why people are not more involved.
Once again, Jerry is 100% right here. There were some major changes coming out here in V5, and I've already seen some people on Facebook being very vocal about their thoughts here. MLG definitely needs to hear this feedback, so please post it to them, email it to them, tweet it. Anything you can. We definitely, as a community, need to hear your voice. As for those actual changes, one in particular change that I found rather interesting is there's a new custom power-up available on 2 maps. This custom power-up lasts for 30 seconds, and what it does is it actually increases your damage resistance by double. So that means it will take 8 shots to get your shields down instead of the normal 4. At the same time, this actually halves your shield recharge rate. So rather interesting power-up. Might take you a little bit longer to get your shields back up while you're hiding, but at the same time, when you're in a firefight, you have a distinct advantage. It's almost like a new version of an overshield. What are your thoughts on this power-up, Smith, as a Halo player?
Oh, the power-ups. Oh, it just makes me smile thinking of the days of Halo 2 on the circuit with the overshield, and what a competitive advantage that gave you in a match. And in other changes in Major League Gaming for Halo Reach. And these settings will be used at MLG Anaheim. First up, we have Warlock, Team Slayer, and Capture Flag being removed. And I'm looking at Facebook right now. My golly, people are just up in arms about that. They are very unhappy. And taking Warlock's place, we have Android. I'm not too sure how I feel about this, and the community is now starting to voice some feedback, but it would have been really nice if they had done it beforehand. We have the Sanctuary Bomb being removed, Element Capture the Flag added, Redemption Capture the Flag added, Camo on Countdown Team Slayer is being replaced with the custom power-up. An updated Capture the Flag game variant is now used for all Capture the Flag game types. This increases the flag return radius.
I almost feel like a change that is this big was absolutely necessary. With the amount of feedback that we have seen, 5 people, we needed something like this to really poke the community, to prod them, take out the cattle prod and actually poke them a few times to get them to wake up and give their thoughts. The one thing that MLG has stated that they have done with these new settings is that they have basically removed all the games that would drag on, all the games that would go 15 minutes and kill the momentum when crowds were watching live. This is going to make for quicker, faster-paced experiences, which should be better for spectators, which I like. But at the same time, a lot of players seem like they're a little bit unhappy with this. So overall, I just hope that the community learns from this experience, speaks up, becomes vocal, and who knows, maybe we'll see even better settings as the season progresses. But overall, I'm excited.
On an optimistic side, maybe, just maybe, the Halo community is happy with maybe where this all ends up. I mean, I don't think we're really going to know until after Anaheim. Again, I am worried that only 5 people answer that call. What that means down the road, I don't know for sure, but it is odd and something definitely I think we need to keep an eye on.
This week on the Losers Bracket, we do have a very special guest with us. If you follow competitive gaming, I'm sure you're familiar with Team EG. Well, we do have the CEO of evil geniuses with us here today. He is quite the evil genius himself. If you are not familiar with him, his name is Scott, also known as SirScoots. Scott, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show. Of course, you might know him from Live on 3 with DJ Weed if you've listened to that before as well. Scott, welcome to the Losers Bracket. And for those who might not know about you, can you give a little bit of personal information into who you are and what got you into competitive gaming?
Sure. Well, first off, it's an honor to be on your guys' podcast. You guys have been cranking this out weekly for a very long time. So when LordJerith reached out and we joked about it, I was like, I would be delighted to come on your podcast. So thanks for having me. My history, I'm one of the older guys in the gaming scene. I'm cranking in at 44 years old right now, and always been a gamer. As a kid, that would have been Atari 2600s and Mattel football, handhelds, and all those kind of things, leading to Coleco, all the consoles of those days. First computer was a TRS-80, played games on it. Then a Commodore 64, played games on it. I think when I had a laptop and I was playing Duke Nukem, I was like, oh, now it really is a whole different world. This whole like run around first person thing, whoa. So Half-Life comes out, which I think enraptured the world that was gaming on PC at that point. And after that came out boatloads of mods because it was open source game. You could mod off it, and it was a very vibrant mod scene back then. Needless to say, Counter-Strike drops, and Scoot starts playing that, falls madly in love with that game. Along the way, I guess, I don't know if you want to know my left of life story. I grew up in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, Incline Village to be exact. Graduated, then went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Then lived in Colorado for many, many years, being a ski bum and doing an event logistics career that lasted about 13 years, and I still do a little bit of that, unrelated to gaming. So Counter-Strike led me to the concept of not just gaming for entertainment, whatever the game happened to be, Pong, tanks, any of those, and even gaming with your buddies or challenging your buddies to like that next step of like not just sitting on the couch next to your buddy. Whoa, organized competitive behavior, rule sets, and times that you show up. And I used to always explain to my friends that didn't know anything about it at the time, it's like, well, you play Tuesday softball league with your buddies, right? You all get sponsored by the bar. You put your shirts on, you cruise on down to the Diamond, and you play softball for 2 hours, right? Well, that's what we do. Every Tuesday we show up in a server, and we play another team for a couple maps. And winner of that, gets video cards. At the time you got server sponsor, you were the cat's meow. So Counter-Strike got me into not only loving the game, but like kind of showing me that there was a competitive world of gamers behind it. And at the same time playing other games as well, Quake, etc. So fast forward, many, many, many years, I work for a website called Got Frag that was kind of speaking Counter-Strike world.
I hate to interrupt you. My internet connection for some reason just fluttered, and as soon as you said Got Frag, it started cutting out. If you could go back.
That's shit.
That can't be an accident. I think that's an omen. I was thinking I was going to jump in there too, and I said, no, I'm going to finish the point. And then you opened your mouth, and in a split, I said, what is Jason going to say about Godfrag? Like, seriously. Wow. But now that we do have this moment, I was going to say, Scott, one of the key things in this period, I think, for a lot of gamers, especially the gamers that we initially made as part of our community, console gamers, really there's a whole other world, a whole other back dimension to the foundation that is modern competitive gaming. And you have seen all of this, and I think, what are some of the key foundations that you feel have survived that we're now layering on top of that very foundation? What are some of those positive things that you think that have stuck around that are serving us really good today?
I think a lot of infrastructure was put in place. A lot of people were able to experiment with, whether it's throwing a LAN event or rudimentary streams, online leagues, kind of what works and what doesn't work. It's kind of in a way established, which in its own right is a positive and a negative, right? Because then you get into the habit of, well, that's not the way we've done it for years. And that's not always the most innovative thinking, right? If you live in that box 5 years ago, you're going to be stuck in the mentality of that. I think the biggest thing that came out of it is validity of the concept. Take away the game of Counter-Strike or Quake or whatever, just the pure concept that this isn't Pop Rocks. It wasn't a fad that this particular game or the games of those times were the only thing people would care about, right? And it was a flash in the pan. It just depends on what your favorite flavor of ice cream is, right? There's all sorts of competitive games out there. I think the world has realized, and gamers have realized, that it's a whole other type of game. Like, I got friends that'll do nothing but single player, right? But I got a lot more people that don't care about single player anymore. But back in the day, that was it, right? Single player was great, and then you hope for some sort of multiplayer. So to answer your question, I think we found out that this is all real. There's enough people that care about a standardized level of play, whatever game it happens to be, that will strive to be the best in the world at it. That now the games change, the flavors change, the communities within them change and rotate. But the idea of it, the ideal of it is very, very real. And profitable if done right, in that sense.
Absolutely. And that ideal is, I imagine, the foundation of your own passion. I mean, you've obviously, as you said, been around this a long time. Let's talk a little bit how you came to Team EG.
Well, okay, so I was working at GotFrag. We had fired up GotFrag TV, which was kind of our streaming segment. And again, years ago, mind you. Between that and the site, again, we were a highly popular English Counter-Strike site covering the entire scene. And, MLG came knocking. They were in those couple years where they were acquiring lots of properties, right, building their own portfolio. MMO Champions, GotFrag, several other businesses were kind of bought at that time frame. And they liked what we were doing. We always hoped they'd like Counter-Strike, but we knew they were Halo, and that at that point they were very Halo. So I guess we all thought it was a pipe dream that they were going to – why would they buy us? They were going to buy us because they're going to put Counter-Strike on their tournament. Well, no, they were buying us for a whole separate business reason. We were a viable entity making content in a space. But you want to go, ooh, League buys you. Yay, Counter-Strike on the League. Well, that's not necessarily how, businesses make their decisions. So anyway, worked there for a while, helped those guys, both GotFrag and MLG. I will take credit for the Meadowlands stream, where I met you actually, Jerry.
Yes.
Where they transitioned for the first time their live stream from what it looked like on USA when it was post-produced to being done live in the room on the fly. I get to take a little bit of credit for that. Because they bought some of the toys we had, and I showed Ryan and the gang how to do it. And that led them down, I guess, their next evolution of streaming, which now they've knocked that right in the dirt. But, yeah, so I did that for a while, and we had a small little studio going in Phoenix as well. It's kind of funny. Like, Marcus and I are both full circle from where we got our big jobs, right, afterwards. We can talk about that. But so we have a studio going. Again, they like what we're doing, but they want us to do more with the Halo stuff than we are with the Counter-Strike stuff, right? Because it's not necessarily all that popular. Again, this is back in the day. We're making video content and doing streams where there was no real Justin TVs and Ustreams. You struck deals with OctoShape and other various ways to try to get bandwidth. It was not easy to do. And, we'd get 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people watching, and we thought we were on Planet 9, right? And now you get that and you go, oh, man, did we not tweet? Wait, what's going on here?
Exactly, yeah.
So,
I think, just to jump in there real quick, I mean, I think that's a lot of what a lot of gamers today take for granted. The streams that we're seeing today, even 3 years ago, were not possible.
Yep.
And I think that is such a significant component to what makes this such a great time for competitive gaming. I think it's very easy for players to look back and say, well, they didn't do this or they didn't do this, not realizing how limited the technology was just a few years ago.
Yeah, there was no, hey, put a capture card in or fire up XSplit and talk to Justin TV and now you're showing everyone your desktop. It just was not. It wasn't conducive. And again, now it is, and that is definitely a huge reason why this thing's blowing up even more, accessibility of content. So MLG's bought us. We're doing some stuff there where they basically kind of want to move us to New York, right? They like what we're doing, but they're like, why would we want a studio in our neck of the woods? Why don't you guys come play with us? So they basically gave us, me in particular, a kind of move to New York and keep working with us offer, or we kind of have to go a different direction, which I totally understood. We even at that point, our game was in a way losing its traction. CGS was already in play. All the top stars had left. There were 1.6 teams, so the North American infrastructure of Counter-Strike was in complete disarray, really. So, again, I said, thank you very much. I don't want to live in New York. Great place to visit, but at my age, not an adventure that I want to go take. But, thank you for the time that I was able to work with you guys, and best of luck to you. So I left them. Sat out a non-compete. During that non-compete, I thought about what the hell I did want to do, because I wasn't going anywhere. This is in my blood. This is a hugely passionate thing I believe in one way or another, wherever I decide to put my hat. So I'm going, what am I going to do? The hell am I going to do? The advantage is I always kept some of my ties in my event logistics world, so I could jump back on the road, get some gigs, and it didn't kill me financially, but my heart was already off that road, and it wanted to be on this road. So I went. I'd never been with a team before other than my own UGP, and it was nothing like the teams of the day or even the teams of today. So I didn't really think much about I'm going to start a team. But I was already very media heavy with all my frag stuff, and we were just starting to really have fun with the video stuff, like instant replay, and just having a really good time, like with making stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy my own gear, and I will figure out a way to at least get it paid for. Someone will hire me to help do a stream here or there, and it doesn't take a whole lot of money. I'll find my way. And so I did. I reinvested in a TriCaster and cameras and lights, and I basically started rebuilding what I had built at GotFrag 2 years before. The same way, literally, in the exact same room that it all started for GotFrag. I'm looking at it right now, my home studio, right? So I was sitting there going, wow, full circle. Cool adventure, learned a lot, now I'm back, right? But better armed. The exact same time, my good buddy DJ Wheat has left the CGS. It has started to crumble. And he's kind of lost his, if you will, dream job in pro gaming. Being on TV, talking about video games, pretty cool. So he goes home back to Nebraska and literally starts doing the exact same thing he was doing 2 years before, buying his gear, starting his shows back up. Because again, that's what that's what we're all about, right? Just different way, but I'm behind and he's in front of the camera. So he fires up this Live on 3 show with Slasher, right? And I still haven't done anything with EG yet. I'm just still figuring out what the hell I'm going to do. And people are talking to me about stuff and leagues, and I'm like, I don't know what to do yet. I'm kind of enjoying not doing a damn thing right now, actually. So I listened to this show with Rod and Marcus a couple times, and I'm like, light bulb goes off. I'm like, well, number one, I need to be on this show because I've been that guy for the last, 10 years in this scene, like the outspoken, conscientious objector to almost everybody's everything, right? Did you think about this? Think about that. So I call up Marcus. I go, hey, dude, what are you doing? And he explains to me what he's doing, and I go, well, this is what I'm doing. And he goes, well, whoa, okay, we're doing kind of, how can we finally work together? Because for all the years before that, he was with TSN, then he was with ITG, doing his casting and his video stuff, and I was with GotFrag. So we never had a chance. We worked together once on a GotFrag TV project we hired him for, but he has always been the guy that, I wanted to be, right next to. If I could produce and
for good reason.
Yeah.
And for good reason. I mean, he's really talented.
Exactly. And, and there's several, people right there with him, but I've just always been this guy and I click. He's fantastic at what he does. One day somewhere we'll click. So we start doing the show. They invite me on and it works out well. And it's called Live on 3 already, but now there's 3 of us. And I've known Rod a very long time and we have our own dynamic. So it ends up being a, fairly successful show and we're still doing it. That's all well and good. Now that I'm back in the public eye, we have, I think, Alex Garfield at the time, who was the sole business partner of EG at the time, and I go way, 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 way back, all the way back to early CPLs, and he has taken that team from a little Canadian Counter-Strike team that always was third place behind the 2 bigs in the States to now the veritable leader in North America because, again, his 2 top competitive brands disappeared, leaving a whole lot of sponsors available, a whole lot of players in maybe different games all available, right? So he has built EG to now take over what Complexity and 3D used to have.
Transitioning over, I know, Smith, you were going to ask earlier, so I'll give you a chance to ask the man himself, because Smith was asking me a lot of questions about EG, and I thought this is a good time to move that over. So, Smith, by all means.
SirScoots, how are you, sir?
I'm good. You guys might not get any questions in. That's how I roll.
Well, for those of us who are not familiar with EG or Evil Geniuses, we're just some of us are kind of thinking, what in the world is EG? Could you answer that for us?
Sure, absolutely. Evil Genius is what we would like to call a professional video game team. And at this point, we're a professional video game team plus a full-on marketing organization at this point with some of the stuff we do. But at the end of the day, we are an umbrella brand that we try to bring the world's best competitive video gamers under and build their brand, market them, market our brand, much like, in the sense, a NASCAR racing team would have several drivers. Same kind of concept. Everything I talk about is related in some way, shape, or form to the sports model. It could be different sports, everything but the athleticism. I think this is very, very, very much a sports model that we're in. So EG is if George Brenner had a football team, a basketball team, a baseball team, a lacrosse team, and they all fell under they were all Yankees, but they were Yankees basketball, Yankees. So our job is to reach out to partners and sponsors to obviously secure funds. And then much like every other, mainstream athlete, you use the pro player mentality and the exposure that this all brings to those people and the brands to bring that ROI to said sponsor. Our job, in a nutshell, is to fly players all around the world and market them in various ways, shapes, and forms to get our sponsors' names out there and get their products sold or their services sold, depending on what they're looking for. And at the end of the day, we're playing video games, so we try to have a damn good time doing it while we're at
it. And Scott, you are very successful at that. And that brings me to where competitive gaming is sort of today. I mean, I think everyone can agree that Evil Geniuses by far, when it comes to PC gaming, is pretty much like the New York Yankees. You guys definitely have the top brands associated with your players and obviously some of the finest talent in competitive gaming. And I was going to reach out and sort of say, let's talk a little bit about, because you and I obviously approach this a little bit differently. You're very much top down, I'm very much bottom up, and we both sort of serve different functions inside the competitive gaming community. And obviously most of our listeners probably hear a lot about us and the growth of the community and stuff, but for somebody who is actually doing this top down and recruiting the top players, what's your take? How are we doing today? I'm sure you're as excited as I am, but I wanted to get your feeling of where we are today, especially with the long history you have.
I think we are poised to really knock it out of the park in a mainstream way in the next couple of years. A lot of things are lining up, like we talked about the ease of deliverable content. The fan base itself around some of these games has given us that tipping point that wasn't there before, and the numbers speak to that. So I'm very, very excited. I'm also very, very always pessimistic, optimistic at the same time, and paranoid, because this is not anything tried and true. Everything we do, we try to relate, like I say, it relates to sports, but like brave new horizons for all of us, for what MLG does, for what DreamHack does, for what you do, what I do. There's no track record. There's no Henry Ford book to go read or Jack Welch book to go read that really – I want to build a widget factory. How do I build and sell my widget, right? There's a lot of that help out there. So you can't look at, it's hard to look at traditional metrics and go, well, in comparison to this car manufacturer, you're doing pretty good, right? This is all brave new for us, but it's bigger and better funded and better exposed than ever before, right? And that has to keep growing, and we all have to work harder than we ever did before. But I think we've kind of hit a whole new mountain that I didn't expect, frankly, this soon.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Scott. We are in a spot now where I think I say it a lot, what has happened, both I think to give some credit to Sundance, and I think the changes he's put in Major League Gaming and the arrival of Starcraft, and however all the pieces were put in place to have him strike this partnership with GSL, which, all of a sudden – these events, I think, have been in some ways transformed. And I know you, much like myself, have either had concerns about Major League Gaming because of the sponsorship issues, but right now I'm really optimistic and positive. And I thought I'd get your perspective on how you see both Major League Gaming, Sundance's leadership, and then obviously the partnership with GSL.
Well, and again, having some inherent, knowledge and and working with the MLG's guys for a while. Before they bought Gotfragen, we all started actually working and talking and really seeing how MLG was, because again, on the outside looking in, you look at forums, you look at outside event that you attend, but you don't know them till you know them, right? And I was MLG has changed drastically. So I would say my opinion of them has changed drastically, and I think very much for the better. And that the actual transition didn't start, I don't think, with Starcraft II. It started with World of Warcraft when they really broke out of their model. And why they chose WoW is anyone's guess, other than the huge numbers it was bringing. But they broke into the PC world. And again, us diehard FPSers were like, okay, WoW leads to Counter-Strike. WoW leads to Quake. Well, it didn't happen. But they stepped out of their comfort zone. And again, it was a growth maneuver, just like they bought us and they bought other companies. But I think it opened their eyes to, okay, this is just as viable and just as big as what have been building. Because they were and have always been the cat's meow when it comes to console-based in North America, whatever titles they were using. But they never were that for PC. And so for WoW, they were just another WoW tournament. But there weren't that many of them, so that automatically put them on the map, right? So they transitioned into StarCraft II, and it's an epic transition. Again, so epic that they didn't expect it. And it destroyed their infrastructure over a couple of events, right? I don't think anyone expected those numbers and the traffic and all those things. I think the leadership of MLG changed in that whole time frame as well. You see the old CEO gone, and you see Sundance and Sepso basically taking back their company, and I think maybe putting it back on their gamers' vision of the company and not a pure businessman's vision of what the company might or should be.
Especially a businessman who you could suspect was more interested in selling the company than the long-term value it might provide to the gaming community.
Yes, and I don't think it was a secret that at the time that was part of that, we were told about that. Like, maybe we all get, maybe we sell this thing to an ESPN. Maybe a little too early, but, anyway, teach their own. So I think it got back on track. It got back to the gamers. Sundance is now very, very, very hands-on, obviously. And StarCraft exploded worldwide. Like, they could not have, if MLG does not pick StarCraft, whether they stay with WoW or they just never did that experiment, and they had 3 console titles, they'd be in trouble. Because what's happening now is what takes all those millions of dollars of investment, and the sponsors go, or those investors go, oh, this is what you were talking about. This was what was coming our way. Okay, cool. It validated what they said, give us all this money because it's coming, right? Build it and they will come. And so, again, that game is bringing huge numbers. It's not the only game that does now either, which is even cooler. So I couldn't be more thrilled that a North American-based company is really hitting the pay dirt with this game that I am very, very heavily invested in. I can't be any more biased about it either. I have 7 StarCraft players. And you tie the GSL stuff in where they're shaking hands with another big, league and putting their arms around each other in business deals. I come from the land of, I guess we should have asked you if your event was on that same weekend because our event's on that weekend. Oh, we can't change our event. Oh, you can't change yours. And you have a CPL and an Esports World Cup, 2 of the biggest events at the time, landing on the same weekend, right? So not only are they playing nice and making sure they don't overschedule each other, they're actually doing stuff together and transferring players back and forth. I mean, that's an ideal dream. So, and obviously there's business, self-serving reasons for both sides to do it as well. It's not, a 100% philanthropic.
True, but I mean, if it benefits everybody, the whole old adage, the rising tide lifts all boats sort of things. I mean, So that's great, I think, for everybody.
Oh, it is absolutely a huge positive thing, and I think this is only the start of that relationship between those 2 organizations. So I'm really excited about what it's going to be like in 2012, actually.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your investment in StarCraft. I mean, anybody who follows it, e.g. is, Idra. You've got Idra sort of as your franchise player at the top and no slouches on your roster. You really never do. Let's talk about some of the plans that EG has, because I think a lot of people know that you're going to continue to invest and do some really important things in the StarCraft game. And I wanted to ask you what's upcoming, because I think there is some really cool things you're doing.
Sure. Well, we do have obviously 7 players that we're very, very excited with. 6 Americans and our friend the Muslim from the UK, and they are of a variety of skill levels, if you will. They're not all as good as Idra, that's for sure. You have to have your code S's and your code A's, and et cetera, et cetera. We do have big plans. We firmly believe that StarCraft II is going to be around for a very, very, very long time. And when you believe those kind of things, you need to look at the long term of your company and where you do your heavy investment, so to speak. So it absolutely makes sense that we look to do all we can to try to dominate in the space. I mean, it is, like you said, we are top-down mentality. So that means at its pure, pipe dream world, I want the best players in every game that we're part of. Reality says that will never happen, but the goal, the ideal is that thing, and you slowly build towards it. That being said, we love our guys, and we also realize that while people can be mad and can be bummed that the Koreans are dominating in this game, they're dominating in this game for several reasons, one of which they have been the ones that have been keeping Brood War alive for the last 10 years. So while all the top pros of Brood War might not have moved over yet because the money's not there, to think that the culture of just better StarCrafters has not moved over. So like they're ahead of us in a lot of ways. Right? The game is in a cultural level that nowhere else on the planet it is.
And I think it'd be important. I was just going to say, Scott, I think it's important to talk about what it is to train. I mean, I think that's one thing historically across North American gaming. We've never had, I would say, outside of Counter-Strike as an example, because it was around for a long time when it's had its heyday. And Halo's kind of been there, even though you're changing titles a lot more often than, you are in StarCraft.
Yeah.
But they've actually had the time to kind of get their heads together and actually have their players learn how to train. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, absolutely. My next part about Korea was not only do you have a very supportive culture in general to the concept of a professional gamer, you have an infrastructure that Brood War put in place of professional training facilities for these teams. And they're a variety, they're not all of an equal stature in how cool they are or how nice they are, how big they are. Different teams have different budgets, but they have, I won't say they've nailed it, but they have been working on the science of training to play this video game for a very, very, very long time. And it shows. It works. Their players generally beat everybody else most of the time, right? So it works. You put a bunch of guys in a house, and you not only put them in the house, but you regiment them in regards to what they're doing in the house. It's not just roommates at the beach. There's structure in place, and there's both mental things you do and physical things you do, and all those things make a better player. It has actually never really been done in North America for any long extended period of time. Years ago, there were a few Counter-Strike houses that came and went. Complexity had their guys living in a house for a little while. A couple other teams have tried it, but they were not long-term. There were a bunch of guys living in a house playing their matches, right, and doing their practice stuff, but not at all in the organized, structured way that it really should be, or it is in Korea. Simple as that. So I think I won't say we're going to break any new ground in that sense, but I think what we're trying to put together for our players, because we are doing a training house in Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I'm located, where our studio is located, where Bryce, Machine, and Idra already live outside of Phoenix in their own house, not an EG house. So 6 or so players are going to all relocate into this house in Phoenix, and we're going to do a westernized training house. So I'll say it probably won't be as hardcore as the Koreans in the sense that they go, I think, 12 to 14 hours a day of literally sitting in front of that computer. I don't think that is what we'll do. It'll certainly be more regimented and more solid training than any of these guys have ever been able to dedicate for any extended period of time.
Do you see yourself doing some of the same in-house type contests like the Koreans do or stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. You know, there will be a hierarchy in the house. There will be fun and games on, you know, who's got pool duty, who got dish duty. You know, we'll have a lot of fun. Again, you know, I can sound all serious, and people are always like, "Oh, you have such a business info." You know, I'm just older, and I've been around, and at the end of the day, this is still a video game. So these guys have to have fun where they're living too. So we are going to have can I swear? A shitload of like.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah. Wait, I've heard some of your rants. Wait, never mind.
There you
never
go,
mind.
sir.
Yeah, I was a part of a couple rants. Never mind. I'm gonna
Guilty.
Swear. So, yeah, it's. We're really excited about it, and you know that's happening this summer. We are close to finishing up some discussions on a couple houses. I don't have details that I can actually go, here's the pictures. We're going to wait till we got to get settled. But the idea is to kind of take really good care of these players in the sense that it's one less thing they have to worry about, right? So they can dedicate more time to thinking, talking, playing this game.
Okay, so that's StarCraft. And let's talk a little bit about other games that are on Major League Gaming's pro circuit, because historically Halo has been Major League Gaming's big game, but I think obviously StarCraft is definitely going to shift that. But could there be a Halo team in EG's future? And if so, would you care to share who that might be, or if you're interested in one in particular?
Yeah, I think the cat's out of the bag a little bit on this because people saw me at MLG. I didn't know I had such notoriety there. People were like, "Oh my God, did you see Scoots was talking to this team? Oh shit, oh my God." And I have mentioned actually in a few interviews that like Halo is a game that we would kind of look at. Again, I think MLG is doing a lot of things right? I never want to say the right things because even they themselves would say they're still going to stub their toe along the way. But like they have turned for Scoots, they have turned such a corner in my mind over these last couple of years that now my thought process in EG and, you know, an inheritance of that, so to speak, we look at them as a very positive something to get involved with, to be a part of. Whereas years ago, very closed system, very much their league, their world, very locked down. And maybe StarCraft is opening that door, right? So, and I've been to, I think, 7 or 8 of these events, right? From streaming the WoW to StarCraft this year or last year. And that Halo area always has a nice solid fan base. You know, it always has a lot of people sitting there. It has a community, right? And that game doesn't change too often, I guess. And when it does change, at least it seems to me, when it has changed, the entire community for the most part shifts, and maybe some people retire, but they don't splinter, right? You don't have leagues doing old Halo stuff and new, like, and MLGs competing, right? Well, it's a reach, you know, so like the whole world shifts. Where you still have people saying, "No, I'm playing Call of Duty 4. You know, I don't want to talk to you." So
yeah, I think that's a good point. Yep.
And so we watch that, and I again, they have fans, they have sponsorships. MLG has done a great job with building some of those players' brands, right? And now you add, again, their streams are better, their stream numbers are better, there's more return on investment there. We have sponsors that are more interested in console than they used to be. We want to go after sponsors that maybe care about console more than we currently dip our toe in, because we have some fighters on console, and that's currently about it. So, yeah, we've definitely talked about Halo. I was in Columbus, and, you know, if I had my druthers and, you know, EG could pick a team, I'd love to have Team Instinct. I think the Instinct guys have a nice mix of both like young bloods who have earned their stripes, like a Pistola, young 18-year-old kid. Reminds me of Jordan Gilbert. Goes by nothing in Counter-Strike.
I think that's actually a really great example because Pistola is, I think, just a great player who, like you said, just earned his way through the whole process. And I think a lot of players have been inspired by Pistola. And I think that is needed for any game to continue to be what it is. So I think that is absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and he's that guy, right? And again, I know Jordan and I go way back, and I remember when Jordan everyone was like, this kid is insane. No one was picking him up. And again, the whole world implodes on CGS, and Jordan finally gets his ride.
and boom, Esports Player of the Year in North America 2 years in a row, most downloaded Counter-Strike movie of all time. Like, so, and when I was working, it was funny, I was talking to Puckett last event, and I'm going to digress here, right? Because I asked, I'm not a Halo guy. I never was. For my time at all the MLGs, I know the brands, I know the teams, and I certainly know a lot of the players, but kind of on a tertiary outside looking in way, right? So I asked all of my friends at MLG, the Puckets, the Shibbies, the Detaches, Sundance, hey, you know what we like to do? We like solid, reputable teams that are either number one or are going to be right there. And to a man, and I think it's generally public consensus, this is the team. And they all basically said, Evil Geniuses is the team. That's who you want to talk to. They would be the best fit. And I was like, all right, well, what the hell? I will go talk to them. So, I talked to them at Columbus before and after they won. Ogre 2 I had met before, and he actually knows Alex Garfield from back in the day when he was on 3D's Halo team and represented WCG at WCG Singapore, I think, way back in the day. So he knows Alex, and so that was an easier conversation. I basically said, hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Love to talk to you guys and see if there's a possibility. And we are still in those conversations. I think the Instinct guys, again, are the team we'd want. I honestly don't know if we would pick up a different team. That's how much we would kind of like these guys. But again, it might not happen, but that's who we want if we go Christmas shopping. Between the Twins, Lunchbox and Roy, and Ogre 2 and Pistola, it's a perfect kind of dynamic fit to what we already got going.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think that for a team like Instinct that comes with a lot of what players are sponsored by Dr. Pepper and Stride. They definitely need to go to an organization where someone knows how to manage all of that and then bring more to the team. Of course, I do know sometimes Halo's a tough nut to crack. They all like their own names, and I think it's hard for them to understand the long history and background that a brand like EG brings. And, hopefully that's something that you can help them understand as to why it's important for them to branch out and, consider these excellent opportunities that are being presented to them,
Yeah, and we are, we're chit-chatting with them. They, I think, are entertaining lots of offers, which they be, right? That just validates, if you will, that they're the right team to have. I would be surprised if they weren't being talked to by lots of different organizations. So we're kind of waiting and discussing and waiting to see what else is on their table, and then we go to the table and we'll see. MLG has been very, very gracious, and we are discussing how things need to be on that main stage if this were to happen. We have some conflicting sponsorships that so we are getting things okayed and approved on our end as well as on the MLG end, doing all the things you have to do with the league and our own sponsors. And we definitely hope it works out, but. Again, it's kind of this whole thing's a fickle mistress. What you want is not often what you get, or not what you get right away.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
I was going to say, thinking about that, their other game, Call of Duty, and I guess Mortal Kombat is coming, and I know you have Justin Wong, who obviously is an iconic fighter. I wanted to ask, how do you see from EG's perspective a title like Call of Duty? Because let's face facts, it doesn't bring in the numbers that the other games do. And then what is your hope, or do you have a hope for, say, a title like Mortal Kombat?
Well, Call of Duty is a wildly, wildly popular series, so you have to nod to that, and it has been for a very, very, very long time. But that alone does not necessarily make a division that solely will get you, get us interested. My fear with that franchise is the every 6 months a new box drops, or every year a new, and the community shifts and fractures, shifts and fractures, shifts and fractures. And those are very big numbers still. We can poo-poo Counter-Strike all we want, but the fact that it survived in fairly consistent state for so long helped build the consistency you need to to sell stuff to sponsors.
I think that's what on the console side has always been a challenge. A slightly younger audience who, now Halo, like we said, has that consistency, but Call of Duty reminds me a lot of Gears of War, because a lot of players have a very basic, I'm good, therefore I should be sponsored mentality. and they're not aware of, all the extra that needs to be done that is a lot more than just being good at a game.
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, for a top-down business like ours, it is all about, and actually even for you, I don't even mean it that way, but like our brand relies on winning or trying to win and winning on a big stage whenever possible, right? So there's a boatload of games out there that have a fan base, that have a player base, that have a little bit of money behind them, but they're not epic games in that sense, right? Starcraft II is an epic title for a lot of reasons. Because, tell me the top 5 personality superstars of this version of Call of Duty.
That's a tough.
Who are the
tough.
And you need time for the personalities to develop. Heaton doesn't become the greatest Counter-Striker ever if he only gets to play that game for a year, right? So the lack of that consistent platform doesn't let you build you call Justin a franchise, right? Doesn't let that franchise player come to exist, because 6 months later he's jumping to the new version and they're all downgraded a little bit. Well, he was really good in Call of Duty 4, but man, he hasn't picked up this version. You need that base, and that they need to stop making the game for 2 years. And you would see the stability of teams forming more consistently. It's kind of a flavor of the month thing. And frankly, the numbers aren't that great, and there's no big place to play it anywhere but, in North America at least, anywhere but MLG, and there are a few events in Europe. So it comes down to, is it worth plane tickets? Is it worth hotel rooms? Is it worth all the staff you need to run that team, to market that team, to cover that team?
Plus, not to mention, now that you say that, Scott, I mean, Europe actually does play with different settings.
That's true.
So it makes it even more complicated, I think.
Yeah. So it's a game we look at and go, right now, not worth an investment. Simple as that. Unfortunately, there are some great people playing the game. I'm not even talking, you'll never hear me say it's not a skillful game, and that's why we're not into it.
Of course, yeah.
With that, because obviously it is. So yeah, it's just not a game we're interested in, unfortunately.
And what about Mortal Kombat? Is that
Mortal Kombat? Different story in a way. Most of the fighting game community seems to think that after Evo, that game goes away. But then you have some in the community that says, nope, they'll keep patching it. It'll keep getting support, and you watch. It'll be the third game. It'll be Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Super Street Fighter AE, and Mortal Kombat will continue to be that third game. The cool thing about the fighting game community in general is you go to these events, and they might stream 3 or 4 different game titles, but they're all there playing 7, 8, 9 different ones. They still play Guilty Gear. They still play HD Remix. Justin will tweet me or message me what he won, and he'll tell me he's won the most obscure games because they'll throw all these little side tournaments, right? They don't get pressed. They don't get streamed. It's not a lot of money, but they play a shitload of these different games. So it's which one rises and becomes a major title, right? And I don't know. The cool thing about Mortal Kombat, a cool thing, I guess, about all the fighters is they do patch, they do watch and see what fighters are overpowered. They tweak their games. And this developer, NetherRealms, has been very supportive so far of keeping an eye on the competitive community, getting feedback from the top pros, and fixing their game to be balanced for the pro scene without, making it horrible for their public scene, right? So,
and I think to add to that, we do know that Major League Gaming has signed an all studio contract with Warner Brothers, who's the distributor of Mortal Kombat. So that could hint, or at least indicate that, it could indicate some title, but it could speak very well about the level of support that Major League Gaming expects to see in the Mortal Kombat title.
Well, and that's what makes a game stick around. If the Evo crowd and everyone who's in that mindset isn't going to support it after Evo, meaning everyone who threw qualifiers to players to Evo, if they're all of the mindset that, okay, we're just using it this year because it's brand new, but it's out, then they could very well end that game's competitive career too. But it is encouraging that license you speak of, because there's always been this drama and this debate of why doesn't MLG, who's Capcom games, why isn't Street Fighter on that stage, right? Why aren't they doing a fighting game stage that not just Tekken, but same thing that they do every weekend at one of these events, right? Run through different games. And there's always been an issue with Capcom license, etc. So, they drop Mortal Kombat on that stage. That would be great. That would help that game continue to grow as a competitive title, right? Because it gives it 5 more stops, 4 more stops. And then maybe some of these fighters that still hold this grudge against MLG for years ago, potential transgression, finally come to an event and go, whoa, our ballrooms aren't this big. Well, Evo's this big. The Evo's big, don't get me wrong, but like a lot of them are not. They're the qualifiers are not.
No, not at all, right?
But you walk into an Evo and it's like walking into Columbus, right? People are screaming and losing their minds. But even in a fighting game tournament, I've never seen so many signs or people painting EG on their chest. So, maybe that'll happen. That'd be cool. Go Justin on your chest. So that would be great. Maybe that is exactly the kind of thing. And if NetherRealms and Warner Brothers supports their game and those kind of initiatives, maybe they help make that the 3rd title, right? Because Capcom is very supportive to a lot of organizations. They just – and again, Sundance could probably speak to why it's not happening for him, but it's not. So it's frustrating.
I think in thinking about that, just going through, here we are, one possibility, Mortal Kombat. And as we think about that, there's a lot in place that could make Mortal Kombat something that is going to be on the circuit in 2012. There is some movement that can make people optimistic. Now let's go over to another title. I just want to move it over back to the PC. And I want to talk about, we've all been watching DreamHack. We've seen the stream numbers in League of Legends. Different people have different opinions. Some people feel League of Legends is huge. It's got a lot of support from Riot, the developer, who obviously has just had an influx of cash from a Chinese company. And there's Heroes of North, which I know you've had a team, but that game has struggled. Maybe the developer S2 Games is going to catch up. And then obviously there's the looming giant Dota 2 from Valve being released. How do you and Evil Geniuses look at this space? And is it a wait and see? Do you have a strong preference for a game, or have you put your stock in a game? What do you think about that?
We are definitely very much in a wait and see with that entire genre, if you will. We do have a Han team currently, but we're not using that to say, since we have a Han team, we're not going to think about Dota 2 or we're not going to think about League of Legends. They don't relate. It's like having 2 different FPSs in my mind. They're all very similar, I guess, but their fan bases are vehemently not together. Like they hate each other, right? So the stream numbers are obviously insane. You go from insane numbers out of the MLG to insane numbers out of DreamHack. That's a really, really good thing for both DreamHack and MLG, right? They now are getting the eyeballs, which is what they need to keep getting paid. So League of Legends numbers, disgustingly huge. The player base of League of Legends is disgustingly huge. In a lot of ways, to me, it's the World of Warcraft factor when it came to those stream numbers, because those stream numbers made people lose their mind back when we did our first WoW event. We had twice as many people on our stream than Halo and Gears of War combined, and people were losing their minds. Much lower numbers for all of those things, but it was like, whoa. But that game is not friendly to, oh, what is this? Let me watch this. Those were WoW players who there are millions coming to watch a game they already kind of understood. It's a very drilled into audience within games. And then I think it's very similar with League of Legends. I think the majority of those viewers are active League of Legends players, maybe on a casual level with their buddies, not all competitive on teams, scrimmaging and practicing and in tournaments, but they're already League of Legends players. It doesn't dismiss the numbers, but it quantifies where they came from. But still, disgusting. 210,000 concurrents. That's mind-boggling. TV numbers. MLGs were mind-boggling. So I think it's very, very cool. I think it speaks to the millions of people that now care about what we're doing more and more, right? Because at the same time that's going on, 60,000 people are watching Day 9. And another 20,000 people are watching a German StarCraft stream. And another 10,000 are watching a French StarCraft stream. Add that all up, and there are 340,000 people watching something coming out of DreamHack, right? That's disgustingly cool. But as I was talking to a couple of my League of Legends friends, and same thing I say to anyone who asks, if the game has legs, if the game's meant to be here for a while, again, if I invest thousands of dollars into plane tickets and then the game shrivels up in 6 months, I lost the long-term investment of saying that, like it does me no good. The game's got to be around for a little while.
Absolutely. Plus, how do you, and I think another challenge is the same problem you would have in a Call of Duty or anything. How do you identify, right? You can identify the Idras in StarCraft because the game has been around a while. You can identify the Pistola in Halos. League of Legends, I think, presents that same problem you have in Call of Duty. It is a new title. How do you discover who that consistent, top-performing, iconic player who can interview well, use social media well, stream well? I think it would almost be like a shot in the dark, no?
Yeah, and again, it's a slightly different take on our business models. Often organizations will want to grab to get in early. In some weird way, we did that with StarCraft when we picked up our Brood War team years ago. But even we didn't know. I can't sit here and go, well, yeah, Garfield recruited those guys because he knew how crazy big StarCraft II was going to be. We knew it'd be big, but he recruited some really good guys because it was easy. They had one event to go to. It was WCG, and the international part of it, if you won, was paid for. Easy thing to invest in, So you look at this one and go, I'll wait. I'll wait for the superstar team. Just because you won one event does not mean that I am going to recruit you, right? Because that could be a fluke. You could come home and you found out at that event that you absolutely hate two of your teammates. But I recruited you because you just won, and then you just broke up on me. And now I'm screwed. So we want to wait. We want to see what develops out of these 200,000 viewers, see what tool set Riot continues to bring, because it's missing some stuff that they're working on, replay, spectator mode. It's all about ROI for us. So ROI nowadays is a lot of content. How do I stream my players? How do I spectate matches? How do I do a Masters Cup? How do I get involved in all those things that we do with our players, right? It's coming, and if the game has legs, if Riot and Matt Marcoux continue to do what they're doing right over there and keep growing it, then I will be just fine in 6 months or a year grabbing one of the top teams at the time because they'll already have been a little bit more vetted, and the whole scene will be a little bit more vetted, right? Same thing and then Dota 2 drops, and if they give it away and it's a free game like magically they just did with TF2, how many League of Legenders jump ship? So what happens with my star roster if all of a sudden half of them decide, oh, I'm a Dota player, I'm going back to Dota 2. Peace! But I recruited you to play League of Legends. I don't care, I don't play it, but now, so again, slow and steady wins the race here, right? Slow and steady. If it's a flash-in-the-pan game, then I don't necessarily need it for the promotion. And other teams want to get in and want to say, we've got every possible team possible. We're going to have every team. And that's a different way to sell what you do, right? You've got more in the space. And we've been there. We've had, at one point, I think we had 7 or 8 divisions, and we're slowly pulling back. It's got to have a threshold now. Again, superstars, franchise players, or personable players, friendly players, players that people know about, that want to care about. Winning is the secondary almost, right? Fans are the ones that care. If fans care, sponsors smile, right? So, I'll wait. We'll wait on League of Legends.
I think you actually right there hit on something really important, which is, as esports grows and competitive gaming grows, a lot of newcomers are going to come into this field. And, we have both watched you a lot longer than me. A lot of organizations come, and there are many that have dropped like flies. I mean, I think the road of organizations is littered with people who didn't really think long term. And, a lot of challenges, I think, are there because of how complicated this space is. And I think what you just hit on is something really important. As things pick up, there are going to be organizations that pop up that are going to, I believe, spend a lot of money. And at the end of the day, I do question, is there a long-term vision here, right? Because let's face facts. There can Team EG can compete with other organizations for talent, but it still becomes very difficult for other organizations to build the relationships that, for example, EG has with its sponsors, with industry partners, and the knowledge base, which is, one of the reasons we're excited to have you on the show, is this longer-term perspective that you can bring that's so important. Do you foresee that? Do you think there are going to be Do you think that there's a natural instinct for new organizations to pop up and want to maybe spend a lot of money if they have access to it and just get a lot of players believing that's how they get credibility and recognition?
Yep. I think we're seeing a gold rush with a whole lot of false gold as well, if that weird analogy makes sense. There's always been young entrepreneurs that have wanted to do a business with something they're passionate about, right? And of course, so you're surrounded by young gamers, and they all want to maybe run a team or run a league. And maybe my dream job, dude, would be to run a team or run a league or run a website. Like, those are dream jobs, right? But the world is full of people that want their dream job but have to go bake the donuts, and they have to go crunch the accounting books, and they have to go do real things, right? So I think that we've always had these, I'm going to start a team, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now there's more than ever because the excitement's at a fevered pace. It's kind of like if you were really into cooking, right? Like, you were a young guy, and I'm into cooking, I want to be a chef. Would you immediately go open a restaurant, or would you go work in restaurants for a while, right? That mentality doesn't exist. Instead of people trying to learn, they just go do. Restaurants do go out of business, right? For the
quite
same
frequently,
reason.
Actually, to be honest, it's one of those high-fail businesses because everybody believes how hard is it to run a restaurant, right?
Exactly, but the stick around aren't the ones that I know how to make an omelet, so I'm going to open a breakfast place, right? And again, you got to love, the coolest thing about what's going on is we are awash with entrepreneurial spirit. But with that comes the not so legit ones, the ones with maybe ulterior motives, but we've always had those. I just think now the numbers attract a whole new level of them, which again, that's a good thing to have, right? People care, good and bad people. I think you need, there needs to be competition to EG. Do I have an advantage because our Rolodex has been open for much longer, and so you build these trustful relationships? Sure. But again, this is not going anywhere. So I got a few-year head start, but in 20 years, I'm not going to have a head start anymore, am I? Right? So
I think that's a good point. I mean, Complexity, I think both of you have been around quite a bit. And that is, definitely an advantage. But the clock ticks and people catch up and the plateaus happen. And, sometimes talent is discovered that helps another organization build their brand and a relationship with sponsors, all of that. Yeah.
Now that the ROI has 12 different ways to get it, whereas before it didn't. Back in the day, that logo on the sleeve, that website, what's your page use today, meant so much more than it does now with social networking interactions and all the other things you can provide for your partners. So, again, smart will build smart organizations because there is a lot of money out there. And trust me, EG wants it all, but we certainly do, you know what I mean? There's plenty of finances out there for plenty of EGs to be built by the right people. And, there's things we're not probably doing right and things we're not doing at all. That someone will come along and go, oh, looked at that model, looked at this model. Let me tweak this a little bit. And then we look over and go, oh, damn.
That brings up a good point. I mean, I think in a way we came on the scene bringing a different model. And, I think at first, maybe you and I clashed over some things. And, I think a lot of people, one, they may think that there's either competition between EG and VVV or in some ways we don't get along. And I thought I'd give you a chance to talk about your experiences as when we came on it, all of a sudden there is this new model and maybe we clash, but, I believe we serve a good space here, but, I'd like to get your perspective if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, your viewers probably more than anyone who might be linked to this from my world or the outside world have probably heard you rant about me. Maybe not so much lately, but probably scroll back 2 years ago to the losers bracket and there's some heated jabs at me. And you and I did have some sparring, and that was my own ignorance into what your really was and what your focus really was. And so, again, it was me going, I'm a pro team. He's not a pro team. What the crap is he talking about? He's doing it all wrong over there. What? I don't know any of those players. And that's not your model, right? So it was like a clash of two different positively good ideals, but I was like, well, screw that guy, he's VVV. And you were like, screw this Counter-Strike guy. We both...
I think I also reacted to the, the elitism. I think you're right. I read a lot on that. And, and then, obviously we've talked, but no, please continue.
Yeah, so, and in researching more into what you have built over there and what your what your focus is, I was like, well, yeah, he's not like us. I mean, we actually share a fantastic sponsor in SteelSeries, and we probably provide two incredibly different benefits to them in a way. So all in gaming, all in in our world, but different slice of the same pie. I think both things are needed, and maybe we need more of both. Again, you talked at the top that I am top down and you are bottom up, and in a nutshell, teams like EG start with the best possible players in the world they can get. They build content down into that. They build fan base down into that. Community is a word that maybe isn't necessarily thrown out. It's a fan base. Like the New York Yankees do not have a community. The New York Yankees have a fan base, right? So it was never our intention to grow a community per se, unless you're a community that loves EG and our players, and that makes you a fan, right? You, on the other hand, have come from a whole different end. Same token, like you tag EG when you're contracted and you travel the world for us. It's not hey, put our tag on. It's not a community, right? It's not a club. It is a professional, you know what I mean? Different. You, on the other hand, have wrapped your arms around this whole other group of extremely rabid, just as passionate people that maybe don't give a shit about games like Counter-Strike and the competitive side of it, but have been Gears of War fans for a while. I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to say it's like the next level down, because that makes it sound like it's less important, and I don't mean it like that. But you don't go after the top Halo team in the world. You're not trying to build that. You're trying to help the kids that want to be the next guys. But like, I don't know, farm system with a huge ass base community that you can call a home, right? You can't call yourself home at EG unless you're EG, right? So you're evangelizing what we all do in a more grassroots, like, again, bottom up way. Like, you build the people that want to eventually, in a perfect world, come knock on my door, or I want to come knock on your door and go, hey, I think it's time we talk about this kid.
Absolutely. And I think when I came onto the scene, I had to come on when Major League Gaming still had Bromberg, and I knew it was always a risk that Major League Gaming could take one of my teams or ban a sponsor, and I had to build that flexibility. And then, fast forward 4 years later, out of necessity, sort of being the mother of invention, sort of discovered that, wait a minute, this niche wasn't being filled. And to be honest, you could only have the top players, and there was still room. And, so we could definitely get at one level, at a level of talent that was not being served at all, because they weren't quite at the very top level with that long sustained history that, is iconic with EG, is just what EG means. That's the brand. And then also we could build fans. We tried really hard to say, wait a minute, there are a lot of gamers who are competitive, but they don't know all about competitive gaming. And I think that's how we came up with the, entertain, educate, dominate, because we could take that community. And I really appreciate you mentioning a home, because, we have been the home to a lot of people, and it's been hopefully a good experience. And I agree with you on one thing. We do need more EGs and more VV gamings, because that's going to be good for everybody. And I think a lot of people make the mistake, and I want to address this question to you, because I think a lot of people make the mistake thinking we're all competing. And I think if anybody's listening to this podcast show, they often hear me say, I don't compete over peanuts. I'm not competing with anyone. There's not enough to compete for. You, on the other hand, definitely are in a way at that professional level where your competition is a complexity. Fnatic, SK Gaming, you do have some competitors that are at that level with that kind of pedigree. But at the same time, I would say you and I aren't competitors, as an example. Talk about that competitive space, and maybe you aren't as competitive with the other organizations as some people may assume. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I think for sure in regards to like VVV, I think it's a friendly rivalry. I mean, we do compete on some level at events, at online events. We do have some games that intersect. You have some Starcrafters, etc., and we might have a Halo team, right? So, but at that sense, that would be on the field competition rivalry to me. I don't think you and I are knocking on the same doors for business purposes, and we actually, again, we share one of the greatest sponsors of all time, SteelSeries, as a sponsor. And I think they ask different things of each of us, and we provide different things to them. So that if anything, us getting along and having a friendly relationship only strengthens that triangle in the sense of SteelSeries knows that the teams that they're involved with, their team community, I don't know what to call you anymore, aren't at each other's throats, right? We're all good, so to speak, right? No one wants to play babysitter. Other side of the coin is we most certainly compete with the other top brands in the world, not only for sponsorship dollars, but recognition and brand exposure, and for the players. But that's no different than sports. So the owners of the Yankees get along with, the other owners. They get along. They have a set of rules they follow that keeps the business proper and moral and ethical in a way. But they certainly do compete in a different way. They're not necessarily competing for sponsors like we are. They're very realized. Their competitions are probably more to what players to get and actually on field winning, right? But they're not both going after Intel, and that doesn't enter it. And again, the guy that runs the Lakers isn't worried that the guy that runs the Knicks his fans are buying tickets to their games because they don't live in the same spot, right? So a lot of that doesn't relate. So yeah, we do compete. I like to make them as friendly as possible. You do get into spats with other owners. And you don't necessarily have to get along with everybody to do business with everybody or to at least have a minimum amount of respect for everybody. There are also organizations out there that are absolutely full of shit, and I have no desire to chat with them, to work with them, to help them. We don't need to name names, but you're either legitimate or you're not, and most of us know who's not legit. But the bigs, the SKs, the Fanatics, the Dignitases, the Complexities, Meet Your Makers, the Mouse Sports, the Team Liquids now, we have a lot of competition that are all chasing our pro side of it, right? So, we knock on doors every day and we talk to players every day, But I like to keep it friendly. I like to keep it on the field and, beat people fair and square. I don't think I've ever been called shady. I've been called a lot of things by a lot of people. I don't think shady or distrustful or snaking, I wear it on a sleeve. You might not like what I said, but I'm going to say it, and you don't have to worry that I'm going to change what I say. Again, you might not like it. Yeah, it's very competitive, I think, but I try to keep it friendly as best I can, at least.
And Scott, on that note of friendliness, I want to personally thank you for coming onto the Losers Bracket. Our time is obviously about to run out, and I want to give you an opportunity to give any shout-outs. Obviously, I think I would agree with you when it comes to SteelSeries. Kim and the whole team there has been phenomenal partners. They're the kind of people who actually are invested in their partner's success. And give you this opportunity to give shout-outs to some of your other sponsors and partners and people.
Certainly. First off, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's probably long overdue, and Old Scoots should have made Old Jerry bring him on when we were fighting, and that would have probably been an epic podcast. But no, I'm actually glad to be here on a very positive, upbeat future discussion. So shout-outs, of course, thank you very much for that. We have several sponsors. Our head sponsor is Intel, been with us for a while, so obviously very supportive of all we do and very supportive of what a lot of other people do in the space, which is even greater. They spread the wealth. We've talked about SteelSeries. They're one of our premier sponsors, along with Monster Energy Drink and Kingston, two of which, SteelSeries and Kingston have been around for quite a while. They're endemic manufacturer peripheral sponsors, so they get it. Again, you mentioned Kim Rom, and, if I can digress for a second, I met Kim Rom in 2005 at a CPL when he was managing a Counter-Strike team. So talk about an organization and a company that is, a lot of people throw the phrase out, by gamers for gamers, and a lot of it's full of shit. But Kim Rom is very much not full of shit. He is one of the most hardcore gamers and evangelists of what we all do in the world. So, big shout outs to Kim. Same with Kingston. They've been around for a while, obviously. Don't get as much love. They don't make sexy mice and headsets that everyone sees, but they make baller RAM. So check out them. And obviously, one of the newest sponsors, Monster Energy. We are so excited, at least for us, to have cracked into a mainstream sponsor of their pedigree. So we are very excited about the future of Monster Energy, Monster Gaming, and the stuff they're going to do with Team Evil Geniuses. Because, again, our job is to spread the Kool-Aid. And these are the mainstream people that need to drink it next, right?
Absolutely.
Kim drank it a long time ago. Intel guys drank it a long time ago. So did Kingston. Monster's tasting it, and they're loving it. One of the guys, our rep from Monster Gaming, Monster Energy, came to Columbus, and I think it blew his mind. You can show people PowerPoints, you can talk about it, but when you're in a room full of screaming people, you're like, wow, they said it was a sport. Looks like a sport, tastes like a sport, smells like a sport. So that's those guys. Our main sponsors are Six Pool Gaming. Also, another division of Intel. They love us so much. They have a second division. Intel's Extreme Boards is on board with us, making their great motherboards. Bigfoot Networks, also a big supporter of the scene and several teams. And then our last one is our new apparel partner. We're finally, years late, here you go, bottom up, selling shirts for a long time, right?
I know, right?
I'm finally selling my shirt, right? So, and we got a bunch of other stuff coming down. So that's Split Reason. So make sure you check them out. If you're interested in our shirt, you can pre-order that. We will be having a bunch of other custom stuff coming, so we're very excited to have Split Reason. And, the rust never sleeps, as the song goes. And I have guys whose sole job at EG is knock on doors and go, hey, are you familiar with pro gaming? Are you familiar with what we do? Would you be interested? Let me show you how we can help you. And that's all they do, because you have to talk to a lot of people before you land one. If I could give one piece of advice, pre-prepared for a lot of rejection. Nope, come back. So, yeah, that's my sponsors. Obviously, big shout-out to my players, all my divisions. I won't name them all, but I have quite a few of them. We would have nothing without players. I mean, that is what we do. So, big love to all our divisions, all our players. And then I do not do this alone. I have quite a staff below me, from my web guys to my front office guys, to my sponsor guys, to my partner in crime, my business partner, Alex Garfield. I would not be here. I didn't finish that story. So I'm going to do it now if you'll allow me.
By all means, go ahead.
I've known Alex Garfield forever. For years, literally probably going on 8. He's wanted me to come help him. Come play with me at EG, Scott. He's always doing other shit. So when he asked me, I literally started crying. I'm like, I could think of no better team and no guy that I want to take my next, angle into pro gaming. So when he asked me to join and help him run this team, I was beside myself. So, big shout outs to Alex. He is an inspiration. I might be getting a lot of credit. I might be the front man of EG, but it wouldn't be here without Alex. It wouldn't exist. And then on the whole other token, if I take my EG hat off, I've been, again, privileged enough to finally start a business with my good friend DJ Wheat, Marcus Graham. And, our project is onemoregame.tv. And Marcus has been cranking out content, fantastic content for years. And, we finally came up with some ideas, and based on some ideas he's had for years, the name onemoregame.tv is like the coolest name ever. We were able to take his shows to the next level and put them on a consistent platform where we get some sponsorship behind them. Again, shout outs to Kim Rahm and a bunch of sponsors for believing in us before we actually relaunched. And the idea is, we have a network of shows that, much like TV or online regular scheduled programming, what's on Monday night, what's on Tuesday night, what's on Wednesday night, and we will keep adding to that. And again, eventually we want shows on every night of the week. And then we also do a bunch of match casting. We get hired. We've done some WCG stuff. We're doing the EG Masters Cups. That's kind of an easy transition there to do both. And we'll be doing plenty more of that with onemoregame.tv, utilizing my gear, his gear, and all that kind of stuff. So big shout-outs to Marcus and my whole crew, Slasher, and I got a whole bunch of guys that help on the onemoregame.tv side. That, again, that site, that project would not have ever come to fruition if not for a whole bunch of people other than me. So check that out as well. And on top of that, a big shout-out to all the leagues, everyone writing stuff, everyone making content, and whatever game it happens to be, whatever you're a fan of, thank you. Thank you for being that person. We need all of this to grow. I might not like some games, but, man, if someone's got fans, then good on them. And, yeah, that's all I got.
Having listened to that interview, guys, I have to admit I'm reminded why Scott, in my mind, is one of those personalities that we just need in competitive gaming. His mindset, the way he runs Evil Geniuses, he is actually an inspiration to me, believe it or not. And I'm very proud that he is here in this space I've got to say, I'm really happy that we got to bring him on the show this week. Thank you very much for talking with him, Jerry. I know that I had talked with him a little bit in Columbus, and we had thrown around the idea, but I'm really happy that you did get to bring him onto the show this week. That was rather enlightening, to say the least.
It was my pleasure, and I want to thank Scott as well. Thank you, Scott.
We definitely need more people like him in the competitive gaming field.
I agree with you, sir. But gentlemen, with that being said, and I appreciate the audience letting us talk about all these things, but Jason, I think that brings us to the end of the show.
Indeed, LordJerith, it does. Please, we do look forward to hearing your feedback on this interview and the rest of the show. Let us know what you think. Email us, tweet us. Thank you so much to VVV Gaming sponsors, SteelSeries, Gamer Grub, Control Freak, MusicSkins.com, and Custom Ink. Another huge shout out to the band Power Glove that supplies our music for this podcast. Huge thank you to the VVV Gaming community. Your feedback, support, everything you do for us, we greatly appreciate it. Be sure to stop by our podcast homepage. The webpage that you can find us located at is vvvgaming.podbean.com. Additionally, you can subscribe to us on iTunes by searching for VVV Gaming. Email us at thelosersbracket at vvv-gaming.com with any comments, concerns, questions, feedback that you might have for us. You can also follow us over on Twitter. There we are simply known as Losers Bracket. Thank you so much, and once again, thank you to Scott, SirScoots of EG, for stopping by the Losers Bracket.
I want to give a big shout out to VV staff. Thank you again for all you do. Obviously, SirScoots for coming on. I want to let everybody know that next week, July 4th weekend, the Losers Bracket is going to take a much-needed break for that July 4th weekend. Expect us back here the following week, the week of July 11th, where we'll be bringing in another owner of a competitive gaming organization as we continue to explore those iconic brands that make competitive gaming and esports what it is. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.